Hey, what's up, fam? It's Chappell, and I am back again with another episode of Recap Kickback. This time to talk about the latest project from Prime Video dealing with the NFL. It's in the game, Madden NFL, and I love me some football, but I love talking about sports with a certain group of people, and I had to go back and get my sports commentary team here. Okay, so joining me again from the Duo Sports and Stuff podcast, we got Dane and Deonte. Welcome back, fellas.
What's up, man? Appreciate you for having us on again, man. You know, we had to come in for the video games last time. It was for sports related content, and we had to tap in on the Madden episode, bro.
Of course, man. Thank you for having us.
Already, see, Dane, to me, I saw, Madden, it's in the game. We're doing a docuseries about it. We're gonna be talking about episode 1 today, and just kind of giving people an overview of what we're gonna talk about. But when I saw it, I thought, yeah, I can talk about this. But this really feels like something the duo should be talking about. So, Dane, correct me if I'm wrong. Y'all are the perfect pair to talk about Madden.
How much time do you have?
We got time, baby. Let's get comfortable. Let's talk.
If you take a look in the historical context of what Madden has done to our collective lives in terms of just the brotherhood, inspiring us to always keep that competitive fire, and then on top of that, just remembering to have fun, and it's in the game. So it's that word. It means it's not just a name. I think it's a lifestyle. I think Madden itself is a lifestyle, but I'm not going to suck up too much of the air about this beautiful thing that we call Madden. What about you, Deonte?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Just like I think for our generation, like 90s babies, Madden is synonymous with the game, obviously, but like they kind of touched on it in the first episode. A couple of people that they interviewed, just like the culture of what Madden meant in like growing up and being with your friends late night playing video games. Like it's just something that, a lot of people like that are into sports video games can relate to, and just like it's synonymous with friendship. Like Dane said, brotherhood. Like I remember, like I'm an avid gamer. Dane and I are avid gamers. We like literally play the game today. We've been playing, especially since I moved out east to Connecticut, and like just keeping the connection with your hometown people. You know what I'm saying? It's just like it's something that you can't really experience unless you're in it. And I think like my brothers were the ones that put a controller in my hand when I was like 4 years old. And back then you do the trick where you think you plug the game in for your,
but you're not really
you make your little brother think the game is, but you're not. Exactly. And the first game I played was Madden 94 on the Sega Genesis, and there's still a picture of me holding the controller as a little kid. But I know we'll tap into that. But it's just synonymous with brotherhood, friendship, of course, the video game aspect of it too. But all those things encompassing.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely here to pick y'all's brains about your Madden story. I think that's way more interesting than what we saw in episode 1. Don't get me wrong. We get a lot of some things, questions that we probably didn't even have about Madden that we didn't know we needed to know that we're going to get answered in this episode. Yeah. But we're here to talk about how we grew up and how we were playing Madden and how this really feels uniquely for our generation. Don't get me wrong. Video games obviously started before we were born, but the heyday really kicks in with us. You know what I'm saying? Like we will see the development of video games such as Madden, EA Sports as well. And we will see all of that kind of taking place when it was very primitive. It wasn't sexy. It was, you got little dots moving on the screen left and right. But now they got, this is in different areas now. It's professional. Okay. They are just seeing all the aspects that go into making the players move the way they do, all the different aspects of the game with the attributes and stuff. I feel like you don't get that without our generation. You know what I'm saying? We grew up and like we built this. All of this that you see around here, this is here because of us. You know what I'm saying? So watching this was cool because I was like, dang, we really did grow up at the precipice of something that will go on to be so great. And so I definitely wanted to talk to y'all about it for sure. Because I know y'all are big football people, definitely, right? And so, Dane, my question for you first is, how does football look if you didn't have Madden? You know what I'm saying? Would you be as invested in the sport in general if you didn't have a video game that you could go home and kind of simulate your own version of it on a daily basis?
You know what? That's a great question. So with the absence of Madden in my life, not to be dramatic here, but there is a handful of friendships, and I say friendships lightly, but a handful of family that I would not have to this day if not for Madden. Whether it's meeting one of my lifelong friends, Demaric, in a Madden tournament at my residence life, dorm hall, or whether it's finally feeling inspired. I think I'm gonna try to play football in middle school because of watching Madden and of course Friday Night Lights, or running into a situation where I have a girlfriend, now wife, that ends up buying me this particular game as a surprise because she knows I like games. Like stuff like that. It's kind of just what brings it full circle and puts it in a bow. But it's you spoke to a great deal, and I might be getting ahead of myself in terms of what our generation paid. Having to be in the same room or the same vicinity to play these games, to have all sorts of different connective systems or different cords and stuff to connect everybody, to have a lawn party, if you will. And then to now not even having to be in the same freaking country to play, a friend, or to just shoot the breeze and over a game of a meaningless game of Madden. So I think more than anything, the purpose without Madden, I'd say there's a gap, a community of space that's missing from my, childhood to adulthood, and just the way that we're able to navigate and find common ground and just use it as a venue to just kick back.
Yeah. Deonte made a good point earlier. He talks about how he's moved away, and yet you're still able to play the video game. But we come from a time, Dan, like you said, we used to be in the same room. You know what I'm saying? We used to be sitting next to each other playing these games. And now you think people get heated online? Oh, it used to get hot in them rooms. Okay. So yeah, Deonte, I know you grew up playing Madden. Like you said, 94 is one of the earlier ones you remember just looking at. But just think about the way the game has evolved from sitting next to your brothers playing this game to now you and Dane playing from across the country.
Yeah. It's amazing. And like one thing that was pointed out in the first episode of this documentary was John Madden himself. And I remember like they did a Madden, I can't remember who did it, but somebody had did a Madden like life documentary on him. And it was kind of the same sentiments of when this game was brought to him by EA. Was like if you're gonna put my name on it, like it has to be realistic. It can't be no 7-on-7. It needs to be 11-on-11. And like one thing that like when I wanted to play the game, first it was just wanting to play, obviously, because my big brothers were playing it. That was their game, and I wanted to hang out with my big brothers, and I was just like 5, 6 at the time. But then it became like learning about football and like growing up in a football household. Like that's what we do. We watch football, we play football. And so this was before I could even step on a football field myself. This is how I learned to play the game, right? You play the video game version to learn about positions and plays and players. And when you finally step on the field, like for me, the first time I played organized sports was like, I think I was maybe in the first grade, so maybe like 6 years old. And like I was ahead of kids that, hadn't had the video games, didn't know what they were doing. It's like, hey man, I seen this on this game. Like I know what the quarterback does, you know what I'm saying? I know what the running back does. I know what this and that position. So I was kind of ahead of the curve. And for a lot of kids, that had the opportunity to play the game, was ahead of the curve. Being able to play at an early age was helpful. So even as the game evolved, I think like the player themselves evolved to like make, or should I say the studio tried to make it more realistic as possible. And now we're in 2024 and it's like looking more and more realistic than ever. I mean, we still have our gripes about the game, but I think it's so much more than the game itself because it's been a teacher. It's been like we always been harking on, like it's a culture thing, a family thing, a bonding thing. So it's all of those things put together.
Yeah, it's funny because I didn't grow up playing football. I was play basketball, play baseball. I played soccer for a little bit, but I never got to play football. So Madden was my only way to ever play. It was like I can never see myself in those pads because it just never happened. Like whatever the case. I was a little guy. My mom wasn't trying to get me in get beat up on the football field. So like I was focusing on other sports and stuff. But Then you get Madden and you say, okay, now I can play. And then we got to the point where we could create our own players and put yourself in the game. You know how that went. The attributes sky high, you know, at 99 all across the board. You out here doing some amazing things as a quarterback, you know? Yeah. So it really was something that, you know, it allowed people to transport themselves into a world that was like, it seemed like it couldn't be like unattainable, right? Like, it's like in my real life, I might not be able to do this. I might not ever play pro football, but I can play enough Madden to where I can tell you how all the bells and whistles work. So it's definitely fun to think about, especially knowing that there are some people who grow up and they don't have a lot of family. They don't have a lot of siblings, but they're at home playing a video game. You know, that's the thing that's keeping them company. You know, Madden is as a game is probably one of the ones that most, I won't speak for all black folks, but most young black men around our age probably grew up with some type of connection to that game. And so it's so cool that they are finally doing a docuseries on it, especially now with all the different advances that have been made in technology, because it just doesn't look the same as it did back when it started. I mean, this thing goes way back to 1983, you know, where they're trying to make this a computer game. Now, Deonte, did you know that Madden originally started off a computer game? Because I learned so much in this docuseries, and I got some questions.
I did not know that. Like my first, iteration with the game was when it already was on Sega Genesis back in 94, 93. But I was, a youngin' to not understand it at that point. But I never knew it was on PC at first. So to see for their betterment, obviously, them switch over and realizing PC wasn't the move, we got to go to console was nice to see. And another salute to John Madden, because in the first episode, they kind of touch on how he wasn't pleased with that first iteration of the game. And like him and his agent were kind of thinking about, hey, like these other companies are coming at us. Maybe we should, decide if we want to switch up, but the agent had mentioned how John Madden was a loyal guy, and it was like, yeah, they'll figure it out. And they eventually did. And I know you'll probably tap into it, but I didn't even know about the story. I had heard of the Joe Montana football, but I didn't know how the back channels how they had to
kind of grimy.
And I looked that up. That's
filthy,
crazy, bro.
Filthy work.
Yeah, Dane, this is some grimy stuff. I mean, we can talk about it. So, Madden starts off as an idea for a computer game, and then they're like, all right, that's not really working. Let's switch it over to cartridges, because there's this company that called Sega that's doing these cool things with cartridges. And then, we got to figure out a way to make Sega take us on, and we can't really figure that out because we don't really know how to make these cartridges. So now we have to go and reverse engineer a Sega and basically steal the technology so that we can create our own and sell it back to them, Dane. This is crazy.
So funny that you mentioned that, because as they're going through the process of not programming, but I guess deprogramming in a sense and taking things apart, like, man, that was me and my cousins and my friends when the Sega fell off the top of the daggone dresser and then it broke. So we had to put the thing back together. And you had to figure out why, this went this way. And then somebody next door had a Sega. So we had to bring that over and take it apart together so we know how to put it together. So I'm like, man, they just like me. I could be a software engineer thinking about it now. But think about being so driven by the sport of football that clearly a lot of these guys never played, and they're very adamant that, this is not what we do for a living. We don't understand the IQ behind football. We don't understand the culture behind football, but I know how to write code, and I know how to build this into that. And I know computers really well. These guys were so driven behind the sport that they didn't even participate in, just for the sheer ability of, or possibility of, being successful and being recognized. So to me, having that layer peeled back and just seeing like, man, these dudes, and the thing about it was they weren't even sure if it was going to work. And just the level of, all right, guys, we gonna have to get this out the mud, and everybody's in this little confined space. And they said only a certain amount of people were able to enter to that specific room where they were deconstructing the game and trying to figure out, based on program languages and all this types of code that were in the games, and how to make it work. So that part to me was fascinating in that sense, but also just it spoke to the level of determination that team had. And they made mention of it a number of times that the lights or the building, the lease to the building itself, this could be all over with in a matter of weeks. Like, so they were really just living on a hope and a prayer at that point. But that, that they had that dog. They had that dog. They know that they had these competitors and the enemy and my enemy is my friend type of situation. So that was their play, which I wish they would have fleshed it out more. But I'm getting ahead of myself. They might, get to that later on down the road. But to me, it was a fascinating piece to see just how grimy the game is, because again, they played out this watered down product and they say, oh yeah, these guys only had 13 plays and they were all blown away and fascinated. Meanwhile, they got like, 90 plays on this side. So I'm like, man, that's grimy, but that's smart. And this is the reason why these guys are in the room making these kinds of decisions, because they're forward thinking. And they were literally thinking 2 and 3 steps ahead of the competitor.
Yeah,
Real life
we have
pioneers
visionary.
of, getting that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Trip Hawkins shows up, right? And he's the president, and he's like, I really want to make a sports game. I want to make a football game. And we have other sports games. They do show us like the Larry Bird and Dr. J games, and like this is stuff that like this is before our time. But I've seen, I've heard whispers. I've seen in the museums, where they keep these in the archives that these games exist. But then when you see the graphics and stuff, you're like, damn, they weren't doing nothing back then. But it was so ahead of the time, just to have these little pieces barely moving, but they had the personalities of Dr. J, some of the moves of Larry Bird. And they're like, okay, how do we do that for football? But Deonte, you know this better than most people. Football has a lot more players than a basketball team would have. And each player, they want to have their own personality at certain points. So now they have to figure out a way to not only make this game, something that people want to play, but also make it honest to, each of the positions that are on the field. Because I think for the average viewer, they look at maybe like the quarterback, the wide receiver, the running back, and think, okay, these are the ones I got to pay attention to, right? The people are scoring. But there's so many other like moving parts on here. They talk about it like it's chess, Deonte.
Yeah, and like if it for me, I would be like, if I was a programmer or engineer during that time, it's just like having the pressure of a guy who's named like a legend in the sport at the time, and he still is a legend in John Madden, and having the pressure of like, all right, how do we make this successful if we already struck out before with the PC version that he was not, like not feeling at all, knowing this is our last shot, and to make it, for that time as realistic, and, the 3D for them at that point was fairly new to the video gaming process. Like, that's not easy. Like, I kind of feel like, I want to say it was Tripp that was talking about how even before they started, the actual video game process, of how he had he had a a football board game per se with math and like,
that was Tripp.
I thought that was pretty,
like Dungeons and Dragons,
right, like the Dungeons and Dragons of football. I thought that was pretty interesting because, like, when you think about it, when you actually put those, like, not the actual formula of it, but like if you're thinking mathematically and trying to incorporate that into the football game itself, that makes sense to like, all right, a player has to be in this certain position and has to do this action for it to resemble something that, the player might deem as realistic, if y'all know what I'm talking about. But it's just like those little intricacies that you have to think about during, like, we talk about late 80s, early 90s. Like, we're in 2024 now, obviously, but like back then you had to like kind of think outside the box, like how are we going to duplicate this? And I think their best move was, like we had just talked about, reverse engineering and trying to get it as realistic as possible. And I feel like, I mean, obviously they hit the spot at that time, but just like it's not, I assume it's not easy to do, and they kind of describe that in there. But yeah, man, it's incredible to think about. And like I like even how they, at least the first episode, how they kind of went forward and back in time. Because I think that's important, because now like Madden is so bigger than, I won't say life, but it's so huge right now in 2024 and has been forever, to kind of go back to the humble beginnings of like, okay, how do we get here? Like giving us the flashback and, forwards, kind of like this. I feel like they were shadowing, like you had mentioned, like how were they able to make it seem realistic back in the early 90s, and then like how they're doing it now, like motion capture, all the computer analytics and things of that nature is very interesting to see. And like, and I've seen them do the motion capture stuff, but I guess I didn't really realize, and I hope they go into this in further episodes. I didn't really realize like they have actors. They have to, like, for the motion capture part.
They doing full contact, Dane.
Full contact stunt coordinators, like taking hits. Like, I mean, you see it in the game, like, dang, somebody has to do that, right? But then you just see it like, hey, I don't know if I'm signing up for that, And kind of to get off the subject, but not on like, I don't know if y'all just saw in the news where there was a union that was just brought to fruition by the motion cap players that do 2K games. Like they're finally getting unionized, and that's good for them because looking at this doc in the first episode, like these dudes, they gotta be, in shape and take hits. You know what I'm saying? And it's just crazy. But I to go back to my regular point, I like how they kind of mirror the past with the present in the first episode and shadowing each other. I think that was a good part of the first episode.
Oh yeah, and I definitely want to talk about more of the motion capture stuff because that's crazy just in and of itself. All the implications of imagine you go to work, this is your job, and you didn't tore an ACL because you pretending to play football. You know what I'm saying? Like, like you out for the season because you pretending to play football, and, in full, like gear. It's crazy to think that, but when you go back, you're right. It all starts with trying to find a face and a name that's going to sell this product, right? You have football. Right. Joe Montana already has a thing with Atari, apparently. I was like, okay, cool. That sounds all right. But to me, one of the smartest things they ever did is find John Madden. You know what I'm saying? Like, as someone who I grew up watching football, I know Madden's name more from the game than I do from football. By the time I was growing up watching it, it's like, he was like a commentator. He was doing commercials and stuff like that. He's on the later end of his career, but Madden, his name will always be, synonymous with this video game. And it touches so many lives over the years. Like, he doesn't know at the time that this is going to be something that every little black boy going to have in their household, that every conversation, Madden gets talked about probably 1 billion times a day, just at elementary schools, high schools, middle schools, colleges, and that's before grown folks. And now, with video games being so accessible, I think back then they were thinking games were for kids, that kind of thing. But now everybody playing video games and they play them forever. And so having John Madden as the face of this, and also he was 10 toes down on trying to make something that was good, not just, accepting any product. He was like, nah, I got to like the game. It got to be real. It's got to make football sense. It was the first step that they took, but I don't know if, Joe Montana football ever takes off like Madden football does. It don't hit the same, Dane. That's how I feel. Like, it don't even got the same ring to it.
No, you're right. And the thing about it was Madden's representation was speaking with so much conviction, like, hey, y'all can't have my man's name out here on this and you putting out this, whatever you thought this was supposed to be, like, this is not impressive. Y'all can't have my man's associated with that. And he was standing 10 toes down with him. And it's like Deonte's mentioned, it was amazing them showing those present day clips and interviews, but also having that footage back in the day. Them jokers knew this was going to pop, like they was going to fly. It was going to do amazing things because obviously, one, how hard it was to come across a good camera to record, life events back then. But also, too, you recording this type of stuff in a corporate setting. Like the old buddy said, he had a lady from budget or finance or whatever right next to her, trying to handle business calls, and they up here playing the game.
Yeah.
Like, I know how difficult it is. I'm thinking with my HR brain, I know how difficult it is right now to have phones in classrooms or just in a particular office or even social media apps. These brothers had we ain't talking about the little small, oh, here you go, camera. We talking about these jokers had the big old, this is just 25% of the camera. You probably had 3 other people holding, equipment just to make sure we get the full shot. So they knew that they were on the horizon of something amazing just by how much historical footage they're able to put in there. And it's not like just 5 seconds of cut up. You're talking about, 30, 45 seconds worth of material of John Madden playing the game. John Madden talking to them, hey, this is not football. And so it's amazing in that sense, but also John has some, and including his son, John has some solid people around him protecting his legacy and his name. And I think more than anything that helped the guys over the edge. Just, like, hey, let's take this an extra mile because we're gonna make history here, but also we're gonna make this guy look even more amazing than what he already is and the legacy that he's laid out.
Yeah, Deonte, he brought his playbook. He said, okay, look, the play's not even right. This man used the Oakland Raiders playbook like it was normal. I was like, I don't think you can just do that.
Yeah.
But he did it, and that kind of sets the tone for what we get from video games now. I remember when they started doing like Ask Madden, where he would just go pick a play for you, and that was a thing you could do in the game. And so knowing that these were real plays that he saw with his own eyes and he was like putting into this game, it was very personal for him too. So he couldn't let it fail.
Right. Oh yeah, most definitely. And like when and I think that was a plus. Like we talked about the pressure that Madden brought to the development team with, his name on the line and things of that nature. But on the flip side of that, obviously, but it helped them, right? Like they want to make this game as realistic as possible. And why not, have the playbook there that incorporates stuff from the real Oakland Raiders at that point, a Super Bowl winning coach right here. Like, let's try to make this the most realistic 11 on 11 action as we can. And we have the guy here, and you had mentioned it, just having like his name on it, but like him being a part of the process 1,000 times over helped this game succeed. And like, if you look at the game now, like they've added like stuff you see on Sunday, like the really weird little motion plays that the Miami Dolphins run with Cheetah, like that's in the game now. Like literally living up to it's in the game kind of mantra. It started way back then, like with Madden, and like I feel like there's gripes with the game, in 2024, but like they have continued to build on what he started back in the late 80s when he signed his name to this thing, and it's still thriving today, and it's a credit to him and those close that wanted to see this game succeed and have it to where it is today.
Yeah, but we go through this without any hiccups, right? Like there were definitely some moments where we hit some walls. Nintendo shows up from Japan, like, hey, bro, guess what we got? Cartridges. And Trip was not feeling the cartridge. Like, nah, we're gonna stay on our PC, which is an argument I think tell us all the time, right? Like that's an argument that's been happening for centuries at this point, right? PC versus console, and so they started back in, and because Trip doesn't want to go over to PC, they're making a game and it's just lackluster. Like Dane was talking about, his son tells him, hey, daddy, this game sucks. I don't like it. Yep. And so every video game in the company in the world wanted out. Nobody wanted to do this. And so they had brought in their arcade guru, and he like, listen, we got to do the cartridges. This has to happen. And when they're not down with that, he ends up leaving and going to Activision. But then he comes back and like, all right, listen, I'll come back
on his lunch break.
Right. That's when you show up someplace you're like, ooh, it's ghetto over here. Okay, all right, I don't like that. Yeah. Woo. So he comes back with a plan. He's like, listen, you got to do the cartridges thing. We got to. John is loyal to the soil. He ain't going nowhere. But we're moving into hostile territory, right? Like nobody wants to see us making the console. And so we got to figure out a way to take down our joint enemy in Nintendo. And so I did not know any of this, Dane. I had no clue that this is how we got basically video games as we know it today. They went in, they reverse engineered the Sega Genesis, and then they go in and basically negotiate with it and say, all right, look at this cool game that we basically made for your system. Wouldn't it be wild if we made it for somebody else? And force their hand, to where now they got to produce this game. But the caveat is you got to produce the Joe Montana game as well. And this is when it gets dirty, Dane. This is what I'm talking about. Like, explain to me exactly
ultimate
what
finesse.
They did. Yeah, what did they do here when it comes to Joe Montana? Because I feel like if I'm Joe Montana, I'm watching this like, what the hell? Like what are you?
I think the artistic piece of this plan or this the production of this particular episode was showing the clip of Joe say, "Hey guys, we're working really hard to put out this new game. It's going to take us a while, but we appreciate your patience." Little did he know.
Mm-hmm.
Little did he know they were putting together a smorgasbord of watered down bull jive in order for them to be able to come out looking like, yeah, y'all might have had these 5 little features over here in this game, but we got 17 on this product. Buy our product. So the bait and switch, it's one of those things where you have to have very forward-thinking people and 2 steps ahead of their opponent. And it seems like these guys were not only confident in their ability to, with the misdirection, speaking of that, with the misdirection, they pulled the ball, right? Running back taking off right here. We don't know where. Cameraman's fooled. He's looking at the running back. Quarterback has the ball. He's going this way. That's exactly what they did. Straight up misdirection. They didn't even know they got finessed probably until this documentary, came out. So I don't know. But at the same time, it speaks to the level of their brilliance, their level of planning, their level of risk. Because again, they talked about the reality, like, hey, we could be facing some lawsuits, guys. Like, we could forget, like, not having a job. We might not have freedom. Our bank accounts might be drained, and as we know it, might not even make it to the light of day. And thankfully, it worked out the way that it did when they were able to wow all those execs. And again, it speaks to the level of the thing that I enjoy the most about Madden. It's the root of it. The foundation is the presentation. The presentation is how they got their collective audience and their collective buy-in to, like, you know what, let's take a chance on these guys. But then, like, one, it showed me the greed, not greed, because everybody's trying to make a dollar. I ain't gonna head on that. But it speaks to the level of, I'm gonna get my money for, like, Nintendo or the Sega's like, hey, I'm offering this sweet deal. So what? It's only less than 3% of whatever we're making, but it's still a deal. I'm like, dang, y'all. I mean, obviously you take on the manufacturing of the game, the distribution and all that type of stuff, but you only cutting them out this amount of money. And, these guys are putting their life's, work behind all this, and this is what they get. But they spoke to it so high, they spoke to their plan that they constructed, and then just the level of dissatisfaction, which I'm assuming we'll get into a little bit, their dissatisfaction with, here's the, $2 or however many million, I think it was $2 or $3 million that they were going to offer for that particular product. And a lot of the guys and the engineers like, hell no, like, we ain't doing that. Like, hell no, we won't go type of dude. So it's a brilliant plan, but, there was a lot of risk, which I can respect, and just the presentation that allowed them to woo the collective support.
Yeah, and this is 1990, and so they're like, okay, this game should be finished in like 18 months. They bring in Jim Simmons, and he's got this game up and running in 6 months, and they are not ready for this, but he's so inventive with the things that he does, right? So they're used to seeing, like, football basically on a flat screen, and they haven't figured out 3D yet. He slats the screen, and then everything changes. They're like, oh, like, that's crazy. And then his masterstroke, Deonte, is when the players get further, they get smaller. And when they get closer, they get bigger. And it just changed the way they looked at it.
For them at that point, people were like, hey, that's just like how it is when I watch it on TV. they go down the field, they get smaller, right? Or they closer to the TV, they closer to me, they bigger. And like you mentioned, the Simmons, and it seems like everybody else in the episode that spoke on him called him a genius, and he literally changed the game. And when Dane spoke on it, having those kind of minds and people collaborating, like, it's a win-win situation. And for them, it turned out great. And for Simmons, he was, I want to say, wasn't it like he was like, they were like ahead of schedule, or 2 months. I remember hearing 2 months. I can't quite remember.
No, it was supposed to be done in 18 months, and he did it in 6. He packed it up. Okay. Yeah. They were trying to get the screen to turn on and have one green dot, and then they looked up and he had the whole field on there. And I was like, God. Yeah.
And it's funny when they took it to Sega. Sega's like, oh shit, y'all did like, they didn't have no choice, right? But like, all right, hey, y'all did it, like, sign on this dotted line, and but yeah, the Simmons came clutch for the team there.
Yeah. So they think that they're gonna take it in, sell it, and everything's gonna be cool. But they might get sued. They might get sued. This is highly illegal. You know, they stole
They
this.
loaded
stole
up
this
on
technology.
cash just in case.
Right.
Mhm. Front
They
load
was
is
getting
smart.
ready. Yeah, getting their stuff in a row because they're like, okay, we might get sued, but if this works, this will make us. And the negotiation basically goes, all right, we already had the Joe Montana thing happening. Y'all still got to make that happen, but we gonna let y'all make the Madden thing too. And like Dane was saying, I mean, bait and switch, and they completely like it's like raggedy. It's got half the plays that they got. It's got none of the cool stuff. None of it probably got instant replay. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Now, I want to talk about that because
that's some whole
like
shit.
Dane
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
mentioned
say that.
it. No, but like if you're Montana, right? He must have not even cared at that point. He had to.
He didn't know.
have
He
been
didn't
like,
They got the
whatever.
check. Yeah, they got the check.
Because
Yeah.
like if you're Montana or like anybody in on that team, like you got to be like, all right, y'all know this is what they did, right? They did
You
that
see this, right?
purposely. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
At this point, you got to be shaking your head. But I guess at that point, everybody was just done with it. They probably didn't figure Madden had legs at that point. It was going to be a one hit wonder or whatever. But that ended up. I just thought that was insane.
Well, that for not only for Joe Montana's team, but think about the consumer, right? And we deal with
Yeah.
this all the time as people who play video games. You go
Mhm.
in, you excited to buy a game, you buy the game, and you like, bruh, this is not, this ain't
Yeah.
what it is. And then everybody hit you with the, you should have bought this one.
Yeah. Well,
The sales
I think
associate.
somebody has said that in the episode. They said
Yeah.
that the clerks were telling people to buy Madden, like because they knew
Which
what the
really,
deal
yeah.
was. You know what I'm saying?
Really
It's
was
like,
just-
hey, bro, look, hey, oh, you getting this Joe Montana? Hey, bro, let me tell you something.
Say dog. Yeah.
For the
like,
same
You
price.
think you want this one? Yeah.
Same price.
You heard about
Hey, don't
Madden?
tell-
You said,
Yeah.
It's on aisle 2.
Yeah.
Madden's on aisle 2.
Right.
Joe
Like, no,
Montana
my-
Joe
yeah.
Montana got 13 plays. Madden got 50, bro. You can run
Right.
50 plays.
It,
You know what I'm
it's
saying?
kind of
Like-
a little sketchy though too, because it's like the guy that's gonna offer the mechanic's gonna offer the picture. Hey, just come back here after 7:00, and everybody
Yeah.
half the price. I'm like, wait a minute now. You smart. I want to save some money, but I want to make sure that my car is driving. It's almost comes off. It's too good of a deal to pass up on. Too good of a deal.
Yeah. Yeah, because you know the people are like, man, I want the Joe Montana game. It's Joe Montana. That's a big name, right? So
Yeah.
kids are everywhere like, I
Right,
want the Joe
right.
Montana game. And then they dad out there ringing his pockets trying to figure out, okay, I need $15 for this game, and I don't know, it's gonna break me. I got to work overtime at the foundry. You know what I'm saying, to make this happen. You know, it's 1990, so it was tough. But then you get there, and some youngster at Toys R Us is like, nah, baby, tell you something. Your kid gonna be happier with this one. And imagine, Dane, being the kid who didn't get Madden and you got stuck with Joe Montana. Like that's why this is some whole shit. No disrespect to them, but this some whole shit.
Man. See, and you know what? Growing up poor, it's easy to see that because you see the big thing was coming up. You know, the Air Force One. Man, you walk by with the knockoff Air Force Ones that don't got the little logo on. It's like, now you're getting clowned. But this is even worse. Imagine all your friends, your cousins come over to play the game, and you don't see we're gonna play the football game. You intentionally mislead them, not tell them what kind of game you play.
Which
they
one?
Pull up thinking it's about to be Madden, and it's like, you ain't trying to play this, man. What is same thing. Feeling like shame and embarrassment. You just got to sit there with your head down. Everybody want to play this bootleg raggedy game, so.
They said Tecmo Bowl.
It had to be something. Right. You know, it just had to be some discrepancies about that. Like you go to school after Christmas and everybody has Madden and you ended up with Joe Montana football. Like,
dog,
we got Madden at home.
Dog. but like, okay, fast forward to like the year is 2004. This stuff was still happening. You're like, all right, I'm getting live 04, and like, ooh, you get live with 2K. 2K just came. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really don't.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You like Live 06 got the dunk contest. Like, okay, that's cool. You know what I'm saying? You ain't got the 96 Bulls on there though. You know what I'm saying? Like, that they've been doing this since the dawn of time. And so it's like,
look, Jordan's still player 99.
He still ain't got no name. You can't even afford Michael Jordan on your system. You know what I'm saying? So it's tough because it's competition between the brands. But also the consumer is also in competition because you want the best product. You don't want to be the person whose game doesn't have all the bells and whistles. I'm telling you, there's some kid from 1991 that's watching this right now like, what the hell? This is how I ended up like this. I remember going to school and not telling nobody I had Joe Montana because I was embarrassed because I didn't want to say nothing. So they come a long way.
I'm gonna ask my older brothers after we record. Like, did y'all have Joe Montana football too? I know he'll have a story. I'm gonna come back later with it.
Man, Dad bought us that, man. We wanted the Madden. We saw the commercial and everything. Man,
I know he gonna have a story, but
yeah, it's so real. Because they were thinking they could sell 75,000 copies of this. They sold 300,000 out the gate, and now all of a sudden, Electronic Arts, aka EA, which we will know as EA Sports, that it becomes a household name. And then we start getting, kind of like the future of Madden, right? The present day. And they bring in all of these players. And I thought that was so cool that they got all these personalities, these players, because the players are roughly our age, a little bit younger, a little bit older or whatever. But they too grew up with Madden. So these are people who go on to make football a profession. And Deonte, you have to question, without Madden, do we have Richard Sherman? Do we have Saquon? Do we have, Barry Sanders even, who they were interviewing? I think Madden is a part of shaping their legacies, like their household names because of Madden.
Right. And like, kind of like how we touched upon earlier, it's just like a lot of these players now, first time ever hearing about football is through the game, right? And that's where your love for the game, like, grows because, like, put it like this, like, you can watch the game when it comes on a Sunday, or if it's college, it's on a Saturday. But when you have access to football at any point, if you have the game, you can, hey, I'm football. I can turn on my game, right? And like, it's there. And like, you being in that close connection with that product every day at your disposal rather than having to wait for it to come on your TV, right? That's how it grows. And to see like the Larry Fitzgerald, Michael Strahan, even those, what I thought was pretty cool in the first episode is you'll see different cuts that I remember seeing when I turned on Madden. They had the little section where they have a random player saying EA Sports is in the game. They used to have that in like right when you turn on the game before the loading screen, and like
from the Pro Bowl.
That is something. Yeah, from the Pro Bowl, from different parts of the season, right? And so like, I just think like for a lot of these players, like a lot of the goal of a lot of the professional players was to literally be in the game, right?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, they had other motivating factors of being a professional athlete, take care of their family, right? Make money, of course, be a household name, but like not too far down the list, I want to be on a video game, right? And like, how do I get to be on a video game? Obviously you can create yourself like we talked about earlier, right? But I learned the game by playing the game, do what I have to do, training wise, you know what I'm saying, in high school, college, be the best that I can be, right? And then you go on to be a professional, and you literally in the game. And so I think for a lot of those players that they spoke about, and I'm sure they're going to talk about in future episodes, is like literally the EA Sports mantra of it's in the game. Like that's what they wanted. And like for those players, like this game itself help them get there, right? Help them become a professional athlete was by playing this game and having that goal.
Yeah, and Dane, the goal has to be not only to get in the game, but you want your attributes to be strong too. Like you don't want to get in the game and then you're like a scrub. You try to get in the game, make sure you're competitive because you grew up, playing the game. And picking teams because you wanted to pick a good team. Like, I feel bad for the people who play with the sorry team. Can't relate. I would always I'm picking somebody who's competitive. I might not pick the best team, but you know what I'm saying? Like, if you go in there and you picking the Browns every time, like, good, more power to you. You know what I'm saying? But
Good luck.
I remember,
Good luck.
yeah, I remember watching football and being fans of the players a little bit. But I remember playing Madden and becoming fans of the players because you then had a connection with this was your player. You know what I'm saying? You couldn't tell me nothing about the Rams. Up to Marshall Faulk, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you couldn't tell me nothing about them because I was like, I don't have no connection to that team. But you play with them so much on Madden, you could think of like all the big moments, all the players that you know. Like, I used to do some damage with T.O. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just all the players that you know that you can connect your big wins, right? Your moments with your homeboys to the player in Madden. And then that person, they just doing their job. They just out here doing football because it's their career, it's what they love. Now, these players got the same connection to Madden that we had, and they're incorporating that into their playing ability. You know, I think somebody was saying they even use Madden to kind of get to know their opponents, Dane. I thought that was pretty cool. Playing the season before you start playing, look, it's innovative.
Yeah. You know, you have to have really tough skin, not the developers, not the directors, not the stunt doubles, the brothers that are in charge of those ratings, because they get accosted, hemmed up, like, you know, digitally hemmed up in their mentions, like, hey man, why I got my speed is a 93. I just ran a 4.28 at the combine. Like, what's going on with that? Those dudes gotta have the toughest skins because they get the most, or I assume they get the most blame when it comes to your star athletes or your superstars that are not happy about, hey, you know, my you know, intermediate route running is only a 97 and it should be a 99. Like, those guys have the tough jobs, but more interesting than not, you know, the beautiful thing about this game is just the memories that it's created. The memories that it's created in the bonds it's created. You're gonna remember this. I'm not gonna name drop any names, but before we went to college.
I already know what you're talking about.
I'm in the story. Let's go. Let's go down.
We have a best friend to this day, a good friend of ours. We went to high school together. He ended up moving away. He came back, and he comes to visit in our hometown for a few days because he come to see his mom before he goes back to school. Pulls out. I already have my own Xbox. He pulls out his Xbox. I'm like, why are you bringing? I asked him why are you bringing Xbox. He said, you'll see. And this was in the summer. Now, mind you, Madden typically comes out in, I think, August or July at the time. This was in maybe June. No, this was definitely in May or June. Pulls out his Xbox. Okay, you can set next to mine. Then he pulls out this cartridge or this case. Opens the case, and it's the new version of Madden. I'm like, how the hell you got that? That's not even out yet. I said, it's not real.
You got that new stuff.
Got the boot, and it's on a blank DVD. So
he got the bootleg.
Yeah, he had the hookup. And I called the first person I called. I said, "Hey, Deonte, come through." And we live 15 minutes apart. Like, Deonte, come through. Let's play this Madden. And I'm assuming he's like, we can play Madden anytime. I was like, no, we got the new Madden because it was the one with Larry Fitzgerald and Troy Polamalu on cover, and they both like this. So we playing, and Deonte get there, open the door, like, come on in, bro. He was like, and he's just standing there like, man, we just play for hours, bro. Play for hours. Like, it before it even hit the streets. Didn't connect to the internet or anything.
That's so crazy.
I don't even know if you keep this into the pod for legal reasons, which is why I don't name this brother.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly. I heard, but stuff like that. Like, we have our sources for getting, the bootleg J's, the bootleg movies, the knockoff Gucci purse, all that. This was a whole different thing that I'd never imagined ever. And that sort of thing, it just doesn't, I never heard of that happening with video games. You could literally just wait for it to come out. It was so hot. The standard of, I got this new shiny toy, like that was the biggest one. The biggest bootleg. And it, played very well. It played like normal. And it was great. That was probably one of my favorite Madden memories right there.
That's so funny.
I forgot about that day. That was definitely one of the best summers, man. We were on that thing for days and days at a time.
Yeah. It's very funny because the Madden folks can't be mad at you because they low key bootleg Madden anyway. You're like, look, we got the look, y'all still gotta apologize to Sega. So we learned this from you, okay? This is
Oh yeah,
innovative.
facts. That's a
Yeah,
fact.
they don't get to be mad at us. Another cool thing I thought was in the first episode was when they brought in Clint Oldenburg. He's like the production director. He's like, man, I always wanted to be a football player, and I got drafted, and then I couldn't play football no more because I wasn't really that great. But I ended up playing for EA. And I'm thinking that's got to be the coolest thing ever, right? Like football, you've been playing football your whole life. Skill wise, you could probably be better, but somebody needs you to now put your football expertise into your favorite video game or America's, football game. And he's now sitting down with software engineers and really talking about like how it feels to be a player on that field when this stuff happens and like correcting a lot of the mistakes that engineers would know exist. And when talking about football, right? So he's able to be like, nah, when you get hit like that, you really don't move like that. You move like this. And these are things that I never even conceptualized in my mind, right? When they're making a game. I just think like, I don't ever think about it on that granular level, right? Like, how do you know which way the player's shoulder is going to move or, this, that, other. And that's when we see, nah, they out here introducing physics-based gameplay for Madden 25. Now, Deonte, I know this probably interested you. I know you be on the cutting edge of all the video games still. I be seeing you on Twitter, like, when the trailer drops, you be like giving your commentary and stuff like that. So,
yeah,
were you familiar with the physics-based gameplay and what we saw with all the stuff that they were doing on the field? Just within the production?
I know. Yeah, for this year's game, they calling it. I don't know if they mentioned it in the first episode, but it's called Boom Tech. And I just wasn't, I guess, familiar with I guess science is the best word, but just how they're putting it graphically through the computer. I think they're always trying to innovate and try to figure out ways to make it as realistic as possible. And with Clint on staff, and he's been there for I think more than a decade. He's been there for a while. I think it's important for the Madden team to have someone that's been on the field. Kind of like how John was a part of the game itself, like to always have somebody on staff to kind of lend. I mean, he's much more than lending advice. He's actually a part of the development team, but to have that voice to kind of say, hey, he's not moving right here. That doesn't look realistic. He should be going near, his head should be on this side of the guy on the tackle or something like that. It's very important to kind of keep that going, obviously, to make the game and continue to have it as realistic as possible. I think a tough avenue for them, and like, because for them and like being on top for so long, I think it's always going to be like somebody trying to knock down a peg and like kind of trying to knock off the champ, or like the critique, should I say, and criticism and things of that nature, kind of channel that out. But like, I think for this Madden team so far, like, I feel like the game itself has come a long way, and like there's always going to be gripes with it and things like that. Like when he put up on the computer, it had like 480 something bug. I was like, damn, like realizing, like, because Dane and I, we've kind of critiqued the game over the years, but kind of like stepping back and watching the episode and realizing I'm being light here. Yeah. I'm being light, but like kind of stepping back and realizing like what goes into it. I kind of understand, you know what I'm saying? Like the other side of it, like we got to deal with this, we got to deal with that. And like having to do it on a yearly basis when you got such and such staff here and such and such staff here. It's a difficult job. But overall, I think like we had mentioned, Madden continues to kind of innovate and find out creative ways. Like next year will probably be something, I don't know, speed related, like separation of speed. I don't know. But I enjoy I do enjoy the creativity and them trying to try different things, even if they don't work. But overall, I think it's a good, decent product.
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing so much development for this one video game for over 20 years at this point, and we've seen that it has become something so robust, something that these people did not even imagine was possible. And so, it's like, yeah, we complain about it, but that's because we want it to be good all the time, right? And so,
Right.
I think if you complain, people hear the complaints, and then they want to make adjustments based on the complaints. And it's not just like fans having complaints, right? These are the players have the complaints, and they're the ones who these games are emulating. So. I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense to go in and be critical of stuff like this, but also to respect the craft. This didn't happen overnight. It feels like you just turn on your game and you have a game in front of you, but the amount of hours and programming and stuff that goes into making this happen, even just the physicality of it. Now that I see that, creating Madden as a contact sport, it just completely blew my mind. But I have a question, and before we wrap up, the name of this episode number 1. Dane, the episode was called "Can a Computer Make You Cry?" I have to know, has the computer ever made you cry?
Yeah, 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 yeah. So, fortunately for me, I have a different experience upbringing than Deonte. I didn't have any older brothers. I had an older sister that she wasn't into video games, right? But I had, uncles, stepdad, obviously. And man, and in my grandma's garage, it was cold. It was really cold. I had a bigger TV, and it wasn't anything special about my grandma's house outside of it being a central location for everybody in about to say I was about to say the name of the hood. And it was a central meeting place for our community. That was the purpose that it served. So again, I moved my big old TV into the garage. They had it set up, had the heater in there in the garage, and snacks and all this stuff. Playing Madden, and this was when they definitely had to fight for the fumble. We had our own little Madden tournament. I just knew I was shit, and ended up losing. It's one thing when you lose, but it's another thing when you lose on some bull, like bull. That fight for the fumble crap, and you got to be real quick on about what buttons you push, because if you push the wrong button, the other person will win. I didn't cry when they were there. When they left, just because I was angry to brag about. Then you make a silly mistake, you don't see a receiver that's wide open, you get clowned about that. Oh them sports tiers are different than everything else. But when you add sports video game tiers, that just creates a whole nother. And then don't let a relative or a family member see you crying and say, "No, you ain't crying over that damn game." I said, "Yes, it ain't just a game."
Yeah, it ain't. It ain't. It really ain't.
I ain't crying.
It's more than a game, It's more than a game. I grew up, my family is from Waco, but I grew up in Houston. And so I was always in Houston, but I knew that when I had to go back for the holidays, we was going to get on the game. So Houston was training camp. I was in Houston. I didn't have the game. I had to go rent the game sometimes. Like, hey, what game you got? Oh, you got the new such and such? You got the new bat? Oh, okay, bet. Because I can't show up like no scrub. Because they spend every day with this game. You ain't gonna buy me the game? Bet. I kind of figure out a way. I got a homeboy play the game. Yep. I'm finna go grind. We finna go play it, and I'm finna train up. So when I come to the city, y'all know it's real. So the computer has made me cry tons of times. Okay, because I was out there, like I said, this was training camp. It's like if you can't beat the computer, I'm talking about you have to up it all Madden. You just can't be playing on rookie. You got to come in and just train yourself, because everybody else, the streets is ready. They ready for you to pull up, and they ready to embarrass you on their own game. And nothing's worse than getting embarrassed on your own system. Are you crazy? Somebody came to your house and took the first controller. Deonte, tell me, you got siblings. Did the computer ever make you cry?
Computer itself.
No, the system. I'm trying to think. The system.
Just the system.
The game, just the game make you cry, Deonte.
Honestly, I don't remember a cry moment for me, but I just remember when I used to lose to my brothers, it was just like a flick of like, all right, I'm little at this point, but I was like, I know when I learn this game, you know what I'm saying, it's gonna be on. And then now they'll tell you, right? Now they'll tell you, like, all the times, like, as I've grown up, obviously I've beaten them more because I've like dedicated, like Dane will tell you, like, when I play my brother in the game, it's super competitive.
Oh yeah.
But I will tell y'all this. I will tell y'all this story. It was like around the time when I was still like maybe 5 or 6, and then the house that I grew up in, my oldest brother lives in there now. But there was a time where my middle oldest brother got so upset at the game that he punched his bedroom. We had wooden doors. He punched the wooden bedroom door, and it left like this indentation in there. This was back in '96, and they never fixed it. So it's the indentation of his punch is still in there in 2024.
Yeah.
But that's just how Madden is, right? Like it'll get you to a point that you don't even recognize yourself. And Karina will tell you, she's in the other room, but she'll hear me because I still play the game, obviously, and she'll hear me yelling while she, is up in her work meeting, and she hates it. I apologize to her all the time, but it's just like I'll catch myself screaming like, like, you know what I'm saying? It brings out the emotion in you.
Yeah.
Times infinity. And so yeah, man, it's always been like that, but I think it's more so just the fact that like it's been such a part of our lives, like we have been talking about throughout this episode. It means it's more. People probably shake their head listening to this, but it's more than a game, man. It's life.
It's not a game. It's not a game. But it is a game. It is a game. It is a game, and the players even talk about it in this episode. That this is something that we grew up with, that was building families and friendship with other people. It's like you got people who like video games versus people who like football. You got athletes who want to play a game. They normally not a game person. I like to be outside, but I don't play this game because it's an outside game, And so it's making people like, it's almost like reaching across the aisle to different communities. It was doing way more than just you at home playing a video game and eating junk food. It was more than that. And so Madden goes on to be something that we obviously had a great time talking about today, but something that we are going to stop talking about anytime soon. When the next Madden comes out, I expect to see Deonte and Dane tweeting about it. Talking about like, oh no, I see the preview, bro. It's looking like they're working on XYZ. I'm not gonna get the first version when they drop it because they're gonna have to work the bugs out. I'm gonna have to get the second. I'm gonna see all those conversations and more because
that's usually what Dane says. Oh, I'm gonna get it on Black Friday.
Yeah, exactly. Ask me. Do I have? Look, I ain't gonna do too much on it. But ask me if I have the current year's version right now. Ask me.
Yeah, do you?
I do not yet.
Will you in 2 days?
Look, when I see that price drop a little bit and I can rationalize myself, all right, I know you say you wasn't going, hop back on that narcotic, but it's the price dropped $27.
Yeah, just a little bump. You don't need to go full blown. Just put a little bit on your
I think it is important to add, like, Madden was in a tough spot this year because we got the new college football game back this year that had been out for 11 years. Like, the game they had stopped making the game for 11 years. And so when that came back this season, I think a lot of the focus shift to that as opposed to Madden. And some people have them both, but I think having that nostalgia, kind of tapping into that kind of, with the college football game, kind of put Madden on the, I guess, back burner, you could say, but there are still people that enjoy it to the fullest. Like it's still like one of the obviously best-selling games, sports games. But I think just having that sense of community, like I have it, it's friends of mine that play it. Like I think more so just video games in general. I keep coming back to it. We keep coming back to it. It's just a sense of community and connecting with people. You know.
Yeah, and even talking about it with y'all has been so much fun as well. You know what I'm saying? Like y'all already my brothers, but this is something that we get to bond over, right? It's talking about some of the things that kind of made us who we are today. And so thank y'all so much for joining me to talk about episode 1 of It's in the Game, Madden NFL on Prime. Check it out if you haven't already checked it out. Make sure you watch all of it. We only talked about episode 1, but I'm about to sit down and watch all of it for sure because I want to know everything, right? I want to know everything now. And so it is on Prime. I believe they released all of it. If not, it's probably releasing weekly, whatever. Check it out. And then make sure you let us know what you think about it in the comments. Hit that like button, hit subscribe. And right here in the comments on our YouTube page, youtube.com/@recapkickback. Let us know, what's your Madden story? Did the computer make you cry? And if maybe not Madden, right? What is the video game that did make you cry? Because I got a list of games that they was on my ass, but I was on their ass too. You know what I'm saying? So thank y'all for listening. And I gotta ask, Dane, what you been up to? Where can the people follow you? Where can they find you? What you got going on in your world?
Yeah, man. You can find me on Twitter, because that's what it's called. Okay. Well, at least when I joined back in my day, that's what it's called. So you can find me at Twitter at DaneBTX. I'm also on IG, DaneBTX. And you can find me in them skies.
In the skies.
Shout out to all the skeeters out there. We out there too, DaneBTX. So I'm enjoying it, and life is great. Life is great. Thankful to be here. So appreciate you again for having us up on here chatting about this beautiful thing we call Madden.
Already. And DD, where can the people follow you? I know you on the skies. I seen you in them skies. You on the skyline.
I'm on the skies, DS Right Steps. And I have a Twitter, but I don't tweet. My last tweet is telling people to go follow me on Blue Sky. So I have my I'm posting, skeeting about sports and Marvel and DC, and posting content from the job that I have at ESPN, which I enjoy. I'm on Threads, just posting content there as well. Instagram and DF's Right Steps. And just living the East Coast life up here with my wife Karina. And we're loving it, just trying to stay warm. Thankfully, we have not encountered snow. But as you can see by my sweater here, it's kind of cold up here, but we're just trying to stay as warm as we can. But we're loving it here still. Thankful, all those good things, bro. Appreciate you for having us on for sure.
It's no problem at all. And of course, you can catch me on at Recap Kickback at all social media platforms, including them skies. Check me out. I'll be tweeting out all the content that I'm making right now. Mari and I just talked about Cross on Prime as well. We talked about episode 1, but we're probably gonna do a series overview as well, because people really enjoyed.
I'm one episode away from finishing that.
Oh yeah, we won't spoil it for you, but it's a ride. Okay, so make sure you check that out for sure, so that you can be in the conversation and see what we got going on over on Recap Kickback. Also, when Abbott Elementary comes back, G and I will continue to cover this most recent season of Abbott. And this week, Mari and I were joined by 8 Ball Bangers himself, Isaiah, to talk about rhythm and flow. We also got into some of the rap beef that's going on. Why did Drake decide to press charges? What is going on? That man's not like us. Let's check that out and more to find out what we're talking about here on Recap Kickback. But until next time, for Deonte, for Dane, and for myself, you ain't got to go home, but you definitely got to come back later. We'll catch you all next time. Peace.
I've been trapped behind Tall Maria, isolated like it's North Korea. Smaller city with some bigger dreamers. The wall is cracked, I'm looking in between it. The world is yours, but man, I gotta see it. They say it's hard, but man, I gotta see it. The air I'm breathing can't feel my chest. Wait on life, I wanna hold my breath. I'ma get in my goddamn self.